Tashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Bhavishtam Vishnupad Tashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Bhavishtam Vishnupad Tashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Bhavishtam Vishnupad Tashmad Srila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishwam Vishnupara Tashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Nitil Vishwam-Bhāgavatam Srila Gorakshara Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishwa Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadashaknath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rishi Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Kora Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Pradati Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagat Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Dandavat Pranam Zindira Mataji and Rup Manjari Didi. Dandavat Pranam. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayanati Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayana Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedu Sangsarva Bhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vedunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamang Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptastakama Titarangamadhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh, that is a neat feature, Rup Manjari. I had a slot ready for me and said that we were waiting. Alright, so what we're going to be reading in the next chapters is, like, this first chapter is about Priyavrata, and then about his son Agnidhar, and then his first son Nabhi, and then Lord Rishabdev. So each one of these chapters. First is Priyavrata, second is Agnidhar, third is Nabhi. And so in this chapter, Priyavrata, although in the renounced order, entered household life at the request of Lord Brahma and divided Bhumandal into 7 oceans and 7 islands, making his sons their rulers. He later retired. And then in the second chapter, the first son of Priyavrata ruled Jambudvip. He married Purvachitti and begot 9 sons who became the rulers of Varshas of Jambudvip. And then the first son of Agnidhar ruled Bharatvarsha. By performing a sacrifice, he got Lord Rishabdev as his son. And then we read about the Lord Rishabdev, who's an incarnation of the Lord, who begot 100 sons. Anyways, that's what we're going to be. Okay, so this is what we read previous 2 days. After describing how Canto 4 goes into the 5th canto, so after describing the dynasty of Uttanapad from 4th canto, chapter 8 to 4, Shukadeva Goswami now describes Priyavrata, another son of Swayambhuva Manu. Hearing that Priyavrata first renounced and then accepted material enjoyment, Parikshit was surprised and inquired from Shukadeva Goswami. So Parikshit's questions about Priyavrata's family attachment. How could King Priyavrata, who is a Bhagavat Atmarama, a great devotee who is satisfied in the self-satisfied Lord, enjoy household life? Household life is the root cause of the bondage of karma, and it defeats the mission of human life. Now Parikshit justifies his question. Oh yeah, so this is Parikshit asking. Sorry. Okay, so then Parikshit, devotees like him who are free from material attachments cannot possibly be absorbed in family affairs. The shade of the Lord's feet extinguishes samsara. Elevated Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord are fully satiated by the shade of those lotus feet. They do not desire household life. So that was his first question. How could King Priyavrata, even though he's a Bhagavat Atmarama, enjoy household life? Now, the second question is, how is it possible for him to achieve infallible protection in Krishna consciousness, despite being attached to wife, home, and children? Shukadeva Goswami's reply, the glory of devotional service. Your words are true, but a devotee who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet, and whose mind is absorbed in his glories which are pleasing to the devotees, never gives up the exalted position he has acquired, despite being checked by some impediments. Note, obstacles in bhakti. A devotee is not impeded in his devotion due to time and karma. However, obstacles may arise due to the following: offending a Vaishnav, So the cause is offending a Vaishnav, but it can be pacified by undergoing appropriate difficulties over a long period of time. An example is Dvida. Or it can be quickly removed by the mercy of a Vaishnav. Example is King Rahugana. I don't understand this first one. It can be pacified by undergoing appropriate difficulties over a long period of time. Really long period of time. And the thing is, Dravida, he was destroyed even at the end after going through difficulties for a long time. Anyhow, whatever. And then another obstacle is by the Lord's desire, because the Lord, to teach proper conduct to the devotees, like Bharat, not to have attachments, and Priyavrata, to be obedient to superiors. By the Lord's desire, obstacles arising from this is only to increase the devotee's prema for the Lord. Example is Jaya and Vijay. Okay, anyways, I have questions there. Okay, Priyavrata sought the lotus feet of Narad Muni and thus attains transcendental knowledge and always engaged in Krishna Katha. His father, Swayambhuva Manu, then asked him to take charge of ruling the world, for he possessed all the good qualities for ruling. Note, Uttanapad's descendants up to the Prachetas had ruled the kingdom of the earth. But now there was no king, for their son Daksha, in his second birth, took to performing austerities. Swayambhuva Manu, seeing no alternative, wanted to bring Priyavrata back from the forest and make him the king. Thus Priyavrata and his descendants ruled until the 5th Manvantar. At the beginning of the 6th Manvantar, Daksha gave up his austerities and he became king. So now Brahma arrives to convince Priyavrata. Lord Brahma's arrival. Then Brahma, who acts for the welfare of the entire universe and knows the purpose of the creation, descended from Satyaloka accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas. Worshipped along the way by the chief demigods and praised by groups of siddhas, gandharvas, sadhyas, charnas, and sages, he approached Priyavrata at the border of Gandhamadan hill. Seeing his swan carrier, Narad realized that Brahma, his father, had arrived. He immediately stood up along with Swayambhuva Manu and Priyavrata and began to worship Brahma with great respect. Narad, Manu, and Priyavrata presented offerings and praised him according to Vaishnava etiquette and highly qualified language. Then Lord Brahma, smiling and looking at Priyavrata with compassion, spoke. So Brahma's compassion. I have interrupted his bhakti, gyan, and vairagya, but even in household life, may his bhakti increase. Brahma's smile. To refuse the kingdom is your stubbornness. I will make you rule the kingdom. That is my stubbornness. I will see whose stubbornness will prevail. A joking competition between grandson and grandfather. So now we're going to read Brahma's reasons for convincing Priyavrata. That's our topic for today. Let's see who else is here. Dandavat pranams Ganga Didi and Gargaraj and whoever's listening on the Gaudiya Kirtan live page. Haribol. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Niboddhate Tatedamritam Pravimi Masuyatum Devam Arhasya Prameyam Vayam Bhavaste Tata Esha Maharshir Vahama Sarve Vivashayasya Dishtam. Lord Brahma, the Supreme Person within this universe, said, My dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord, who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, and the great sage Maharshi Narad, must carry out the order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Of the 12 great authorities in devotional service, 4, Lord Brahma himself, his son Narad, Swayambhuva Manu, and Lord Shiva, were present before Lord Priyavrata. they were accompanied by many other authoritative sages. Brahma first wanted to impress upon Priyavrata that although these great personalities are all authorities, they cannot possibly disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They cannot possibly disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described in this verse as Deva, which means always glorious. The power, glory, and potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be diminished. In the Upanishad, the Lord is described as Apapa Vidha, which indicates that he is never affected by anything materially considered sinful. Similarly, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as being so powerful that nothing we might consider abominable can affect him. An example sometimes given to explain the position of the Supreme Lord is that of the sun, which evaporates urine from the earth, but is never affected by contamination. The Supreme Lord can never be accused of doing anything wrong. When Lord Brahma wants to induce Priyavrata to accept the responsibility for ruling the universe, he did not go whimsically. He was following the dictations of the Supreme Lord. Indeed, Brahma and other genuine authorities never do anything without his permission. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. In the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is said, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. The Lord dictated Vedic knowledge to Brahma through his heart. The more a living entity is purified by devotional service, the more he comes in direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavad-Gīta. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Lord Brahma, therefore, had not come to Priyavrata by his own whims. Rather, it is understood that he had been ordered to persuade Priyavrata by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities cannot be understood by material senses, and who is therefore described herein as aprameya. Thus Lord Brahma first advised Priyavrata to hear his words with attention and without envy. Why one is induced to perform certain acts despite his desire to do something else, is indicated herein. One cannot disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord, even if one is as powerful as Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Manu, or the great sage Narad. All these authorities are certainly very powerful, but they do not have the power to disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since Lord Brahma had come to Priyavrata in accordance with the orders of the Supreme Lord, he first wanted to dispel any suspicions that he might be acting as Priyavrata's enemy. Lord Brahma was following the orders of the Supreme Lord, and therefore it would be worthwhile for Priyavrata to accept Lord Brahma's order as the Lord desired. It really took a lot to convince Priyavrata, huh? Took Brahma himself, and even Brahma had to try hard to convince him. Natasya kaschit tapasa vidyayava na yoga viryena manishayava naivarta dharmai parata svatova kritam vihantum tanubrid vibhuyat. One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities, an exalted Vedic education, or by the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to the ants, from myself down to the ant. Purport. In the Garga Upanishad, Garga Muni writes to his wife, Itasya va aksharasya prashasane gargi surya chandamaso vidrito tishtataha. My dear Gargi, everything is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the sun, the moon, and other controllers and demigods like Lord Brahma and King Indra are all under his control. An ordinary human being or animal who has accepted a material body cannot go beyond the jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's control. A material body includes senses. However, the sense activities of so-called scientists who try to be free from God's law or the laws of nature are useless. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Mama maya duratyaya. It is impossible to surpass the control of material nature, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is working behind it. Sometimes we are proud of our austerities, penances, and mystic yogic powers. But it is clearly stated herein that one cannot surpass the laws and directions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, either by dint of mystic power, a scientific education, or austerities and penances. It is impossible. The word manishaya, by intelligence, is of special significance. Priyavrata might argue that Lord Brahma was requesting him to accept family life and the responsibility for ruling a kingdom, although Narad had advised him not to enter household life and be entangled in material affairs. Whom to accept would be a puzzle for Priyavrata, because Lord Brahma and Narad Muni are authorities. Under the circumstances, the use of the word manishaya is very appropriate, for it indicates that since Narad Muni and Lord Brahma are authorized to give instruction, Priyavrata should neglect neither of them, but should use his intelligence to follow the advice of both. To solve such dilemmas, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a very clear conception of intelligence. He says, Srila Prabhupada keeps on quoting this verse, it's the definition of yukta vairagya. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Vishayan, material affairs, should be accepted without attachment, and everything should be dovetailed with the service of the Lord. That is real intelligence, manisha. Becoming a family man or a king in the material world is not harmful if one accepts everything for Krishna's service. That necessitates clear intelligence. Mayavadi philosophers say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. This world is false, and the only this world is false, and only the absolute truth is real. However, an intelligent devotee in the line of Lord Brahma and the great sage Narad, in other words, in the Brahma Sampradaya, so Lord Brahma and the great sage Narad, the whole Brahma Sampradaya, does not consider this world false. That which is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be false, but using it for enjoyment is. Everything is meant to be enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 5:29. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme proprietor and enjoyer, and therefore everything should be dovetailed for his enjoyment and service. Regardless of one's circumstances, favorable or unfavorable, one should use everything to serve the Supreme Lord. That is the perfect way to use one's intelligence. Bhavaya nashaya cha karma kartum shokaya mohaya sada bhayaya Sukhaya dukhaya cha deha yogam avyaktatishtam janatanga datte. My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. Purport. Every living entity who has come to this material world has come here for material enjoyment. But according to his own karma, activities, he must accept a certain type of body given to him by material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.27, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. Everything is being done by Prakriti, material nature, under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Modern scientists do not know why there are varieties of bodies in 8,400,000 forms. The fact is that all these bodies are ordained for the living entities by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the living entity's desire. He gives the living entities freedom to act as they like, but on the other hand, they must accept a body according to the reactions of their activities. Thus, there are different types of bodies. Some living entities have short durations of life, whereas others live for fantastic durations. Every one of them, however, from Brahmā down to the ant, acts according to the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is sitting in everyone's heart, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Sarvasva chaham hridi sannivishto matas pratirgyanam upohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. It is not a fact, however, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives direction to certain living entities in one way and other living entities in another way. The truth is that every living entity has a certain desire, and the Supreme Lord gives him a chance to fulfill it. The best course, therefore, is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and act according to his desire. One who does so is liberated. Yarvachitatyam gunakarmadamabhi sadushtarervatsa vayam suyojita sarve vahamo balameshwaraya prota nasiba dvipade chatushpada. My dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions to the divisions of Varnashram according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashram Dharma, like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver, pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. Purport. In this verse, the words Tatyam Guna Karma Dhamabhi are very important. We each get a body according to our association with the gunas, the qualities or modes of material nature, and we act accordingly. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the four orders of the social system, namely Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, are arranged according to guna and karma, their qualities and work. There is some controversy about this, however, because some say that since one receives a body according to the guna and karma of his past life, it is one's birth that determines his social status. Others say, however, that one's birth according to the guna and karma of his past life is not the essential consideration, since one can change his guna and karma even in this life. Thus they say that the four divisions of the social order, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, should be arranged according to the guna and karma of this life. This version is confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by Narad Muni. While instructing Maharaj Yudhishthir about the symptoms of guna and karma, Narad Muni said that these symptoms must govern the division of society. In other words, if a person born in a family of a Brahman has the symptoms of a Shudra, he should be designated as a Shudra. Similarly, if a Shudra has Brahminical qualities, he should be designated a Brahman. The Varnashram system is scientific. Therefore, if we accept the divisions of Varna and Ashram according to the Vedic instructions, our lives will be successful. Unless human society is thus divided and arranged, it cannot be perfect, as stated in Vishnu Purana 3.8.9. Varnashramaccharavata purushena parapuman Vishnur aradhate panta nanyatattosakaranam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashram.
There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the 4 varnas and ashrams. All of human society is meant to worship Lord Vishnu. At the present moment, however, human society does not know that this is the ultimate goal or perfection of life. Therefore, instead of worshipping Lord Vishnu, people have been educated to worship matter. According to the direction of modern society, men think that they can advance in civilization by manipulating matter to build skyscrapers, big roads, automobiles, and so on. Such a civilization must certainly be called materialistic, because its people do not know the goal of life. The goal of life is to reach Vishnu, but instead of reaching Vishnu, people are bewildered by the external manifestation of the material energy. Therefore, progress in material advancement is blind, and the leaders of such material advancement are also blind. They are leading their followers in the wrong way. It is best, therefore, to accept the injunctions of the Vedas, which are mentioned in this verse as Yad Vachi. In accordance with those instructions, everyone should find out whether he is a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, and should thus be educated accordingly. Then his life will be successful. Otherwise, all of human society will be confused. If human society is divided scientifically according to Varna and Ashram, and if the Vedic instructions are followed, one's life, regardless of his position, will be successful. It is not that Brahmins will be elevated to the transcendental platform, but not the Shudras. If the Vedic injunctions are followed, all of them, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, will be elevated to the transcendental platform, and their lives will be successful. The injunctions in the Vedas are explicit directions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example cited in this verse is that bulls tied by ropes in their nostrils move according to the direction of the driver. Similarly, if we move according to the instructions of the Vedas, the perfect paths for our lives will be set. Otherwise, if we do not move in that way, but act according to our whimsical ideas, our lives will be spoiled by confusion and will end in despair. Actually, because people at the present moment are not following the instructions of the Vedas, they are all confused. We must therefore accept this instruction by Lord Brahma to Priyavrata as the factual scientific direction leading to the success of life. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16:23. Yashashtra vidyam utsreja vartate kamakarata na sasiddham avapnoti na sukam na param gatim. If we do not live according to the injunctions of the Shastras, the Vedas, we shall never achieve success in life, to say nothing of happiness or elevation to higher statuses of living. Isha Bishrishtam Hyavarudmahenga Tukam Sukam Va Gunakarma Sangat Astaya Tattar Yad Ayunktanatas Chashushmatandha Ivaniyamana. My dear Priyavrata, what verse is this? This is 15, okay. My dear Priyavrata, according to our association with different modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see. Purport. By material means one cannot avoid the happiness and distress unique to his particular body. There are 8,400,000 bodily forms, each destined to enjoy and suffer a certain amount of happiness and distress. This we cannot change, for the happiness and distress are ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in accordance with those in accordance with those whose decision we have received our bodies. Since we cannot avoid the plan of the Supreme Godhead, we must agree to be directed by Him, just as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes. Under any circumstances, if we remain in the condition allotted to us by the Supreme Lord and follow His instructions, we will become perfect. The main purpose of life is to follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is such instructions that constitute one's religion or occupational duty. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, Lord Krishna says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Give up all other engagements. Simply surrender unto me and follow me. Bhagavad Gita 1866. This is the process of surrendering by following the instructions of the Supreme Personality. This process of surrendering by following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not meant for any particular caste or creed. A Brahmin can surrender, and so can a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra. Everyone can adopt this process. As stated in this verse, chakshush matanda iva niyamana. One should follow the Lord the way a blind man follows a person who has eyes. If we follow the Supreme Personality of Godhead by following the directions He gives in the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, our lives will be successful. The Lord therefore says, Man mana bhavamar bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. Always think of me, become my devotee, and offer obeisances unto me. Then you will certainly come back home, back to Godhead. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Bhagavad Gita 1865. This instruction is meant for everyone, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra. If anyone from any division of life surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and follows His instructions, his life will be successful. The previous verse has given the analogy of bulls moving under the direction of the driver of a bullock cart. The bulls, being completely surrendered to the driver, remain wherever he wants to place them, and eat whatever he wants to, and he eats whatever he wants them to eat. Similarly, being completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we should not aspire for happiness or regret distress. We must be satisfied with the position allotted to us by the Lord. We should follow the path of devotional service and not be dissatisfied with the happiness and distress He has given. People in the material modes of passion and ignorance generally cannot understand the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with its 8,400,000 forms of life. But the human form affords one the special privilege to understand this plan, engage in devotional service, and elevate oneself to the highest position of perfection by following the Lord's instructions. The entire world is working under the influence of the modes of material nature, especially ignorance and passion. But if people engage in hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Lord, their lives can be successful, and they can be elevated to the highest perfection. In the Brihan Naradiya Purana, therefore, it is said, Harer Nama, Harer Nama eva kevalam, Kalo nasteva, nasteva gatiranyataha. In this age of Kali, there is no other way for spiritual perfection than the holy name of the Lord. Everyone should be given the chance to hear the holy names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for thus one will gradually come to understand his real position in life and be elevated to the transcendental position above the mode of goodness. Thus all impediments to his progress will be cut to pieces. In conclusion, therefore, we must be satisfied in whatever position we have been put into by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we should try to engage ourselves in His devotional service. Then our lives will be successful. Mukto pitavar bibrayat swadeham arabdamashna nabhimana shunya yatanubhutam pratiyata kim tvanya dehaya gunana vrinkte. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma. The way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Purports. The difference between a liberated and conditioned soul is that the conditioned soul is under the conditioned soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas a liberated person knows that he is not the body but a spirit, different from the body. Priyavrata might have thought that although a conditioned soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who is far advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spirit soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance, and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 3.9. Yagyartart karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If one performs activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality, the Yagya Purush, his work does not produce reactions, whereas karmis who act for themselves are bound by the reactions of their work. A liberated person, therefore, does not think about whatever he has ignorantly done in the past. Instead, he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruit of activities, as clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Mam chayo vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we will always be situated in the Brahma Bhuta, the liberated state, free from reactions, and will not be obliged to accept another material body. Takta deham punarjanma naiti mam iti sorjuna. Bhagavad Gita 4.9. After giving up the body, one who has acted in that way does not accept another material body, but instead goes back home, back to Godhead. Vayam pramatasya vaneshvapi syad yata sa aste sahashat sampatnya jitendriya syatma rater bhudasya grihashyama kim nu karot. Let me know if everybody's still there. I'm going to write a message in our group. Okay, great. So it stopped for a minute. So I'll just start from the beginning of this purport again. Right, let's start from the beginning. Even if he goes, so Brahmā says, even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives, the mind and knowledge-acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses. Purport. Śrīmad Das Thakur has sung, Grihe va vanete take ha goranga bole dake. Whether one is situated in the forest or at home, if he is engaged in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya, he is a liberated person. Here this is also repeated. For one who has not controlled his senses, going to the forest to become a so-called yogi is meaningless. Because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, he cannot achieve anything, even by giving up household life and staying in the forest. Formerly, many mercantile men from up-country of India used to go to Bengal, and thus there is a familiar saying, if you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses. And since the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, our most important duty is to engage the senses in devotional service. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19:170. Bhakti, sorry, that's not from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I need to skip, whenever it has these square brackets, I need to skip that. It was quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but that's not, yeah. Is this Bhakti or Samhita Sindhu? I think so. Sorry. So bhakti means engagement. Bhakti means engagement of the purified senses and the service of the Lord. Herein, Lord Brahma indicates that instead of going to the forest with uncontrolled senses, it is better and more secure to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. Even household life can do no harm to a self-controlled person acting in this way. It cannot force him into material bondage. Srila Rupa Goswami has further enunciated this position. Iha yasya harir dase karmana manasa gira nikilasvapyavasta su jivan mukta sa uchite. Regardless of one's circumstances, if one fully engages his activities, mind, and words in the devotional service of the Lord, he should be understood to be a liberated person. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a responsible officer and a householder, yet his service to the cause of expanding the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unique. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur says, Durdatendriya kala sarpa patali prodkata dangstrayate. The sense organs are certainly our greatest enemies, and they are therefore compared to venomous serpents. However, if a venomous serpent is bereft of its poison fangs, it is no longer fearful. Similarly, if the senses are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, there is no need to fear their activities. The devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement move within this material world, but because their senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they are always aloof from the material world. They are always living in a transcendental position. Okay. Yashat sapatnan vijigishamano grihesha nirvishya yate tapurvam atyeti durgashita urjitarin kshineshu kamam vichared vipaschit. One who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and 5 sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have been decreased, He can move anywhere without danger. Purport. The Vedic system of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams is very scientific, and its entire purpose is to enable one to control the senses. Before entering household life, the grihastha ashram, a student is fully trained to become jitendriya, a conqueror of the senses. Such a mature student is allowed to become a householder, and because he was first trained in conquering his senses, he retires from household life and becomes a vanaprastha as soon as the strong waves of youthful life are past, and he reaches the verge of old age at 50 years or slightly more. Then, after being further trained, he accepts sannyas. He is then a fully learned and renounced person who can move anywhere and everywhere without fear of being captivated by material desires. The senses are considered very powerful enemies. As a king in a strong fortress can conquer powerful enemies, so a householder in grihastha ashram, household life, can conquer the lusty desires of youth and be very secure when he takes vanaprastha and sannyas. Okay, this is the last verse. Tam tab jana bhangri saroja kosha durgashito nirjita shat sapatna bhunkshreha bhogan purushati dishtan vimukta sangha prakritim bhajasva. Lord Brahma continued, "My dear Priyavrata, seek shelter inside the opening in the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is also like a lotus. Thus conquer the 6 sense organs, the mind and knowledge-acquiring senses. Accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's orders in your constitutional position." There are 3 kinds of men within this material world. Those who are trying to enjoy the senses to the utmost are called karmis. Above them are the jnanis, who try to conquer the urges of the senses. And above them are the yogis, who have already conquered the senses. None of them, however, are situated in a transcendental position. Only devotees who belong to none of the above-mentioned groups are transcendental, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samititaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Lord Brahma herein advises Priyavrata to remain transcendental in the fortress, not of family life, but of the lotus feet of the Lord, Abja Nabangri Saroja. When a bumblebee enters the opening of a lotus flower and drinks its honey, it is fully protected by the petals of the lotus. The bee is undisturbed by sunshine and other external influences. Similarly, one who always seeks shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is protected from all dangers. It is therefore said in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.14.58, Samashita ye parapallava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murare pavam pudir vatsa padam param padam yat vipadam natesham. For one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, everything becomes easier. Indeed, even crossing the great oceans of nescience, Bhavam Buddhi, is exactly like crossing the hoofprint created by a calf, Vatsapadam. For such a devotee, there is no question of remaining in a place where every step is dangerous. Our actual duty is to carry out the supreme order of the personality of Godhead. If we are fixed in our determination to carry out the supreme order of the Lord, we are always secure, regardless of where we are situated, whether in hell or in heaven. Herein, the words prakritim bhajasva are very significant. Prakritim refers to one's constitutional position. Every living entity has the constitutional position of being an eternal servant of God. Therefore, Lord Brahma advised Priyavrata, be situated in your original position as an eternal servant of the Lord. If you carry out his orders, you will never fall, even in the midst of material enjoyment. Material enjoyment achieved by dint of one's fruitive activities differs from material enjoyment given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee sometimes appears to be in a very opulent position, but he accepts that position to follow the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee is never affected by material influences. The devotees in Krishna consciousness movement preaching all over the world in accordance with the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They have to meet many karmis, but by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are unaffected by material influences. He has blessed them, as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 7:129. Kabu na bhadibe tomar vishaya taranga, punarapi etai pabe mora sange. A sincere devotee who engages in the service of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by preaching his cult all over the world will never be affected by Vishaya Taranga, material influences. On the contrary, in due course of time, he will return to the shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and will thus have perpetual association with him. Jai Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai. So what are we reading tomorrow? Let's see. Priyavrata accepts Lord Brahma's request. Priyavrata's rule, marriages, descendants, and wonderful activities. Priyavrata's repentance and renunciation. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Rup Manjari, you're talking about this this PDF, right? No, I haven't sent out this PDF. I need to upload it. Oh, anyways, I can just send out this first part. That will be helpful, right? Let me do that. 1 second. Okay, so for those who are in the Daily Bhagavatam WhatsApp group, I just sent this first PDF of the summary of what we're reading. I'll send the second and third one also, just for the heck of it. No, I'll do that later. Okay. Jai Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Oh, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Ashatara Shatashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Okay, I'll do that later. Yes, I haven't done that yet now. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Ashatara Shatashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupar Ashatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Sorry, did I do Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma. No, Nitila Pravishta Shil Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Jeev Gopal Pata Dashagunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जाय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय। श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जाय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जाय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindai Tulsidevai Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams. Yeah, and of course Gurudev accepted Hari Bhakti Vilas. Alright, Hari Bol. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. Dandavat pranams Pradyumna Prabhu and Mantra Murti Mataji. Hari Bol. And Dandavat pranams to everybody else. Hari Bol.